Okay, TFC tennis friends and whoever else might be watching this out of curiosity, we're back for part two with Nick St. Louis, the founder of the Foot Collective and my dear foot nerd friend, and we're nerding out on feet and tennis. And this is part two because last time we had a little tech glitch because Nick is in France in this really cool old home that lost power. So we're back and we're going to continue our conversation about footwear and tennis. And we're going to talk about footwear and tennis. And today for this part two conversation, I think we're going to focus specifically on cushioning and natural footwear. So in part one, we differentiated between what is unnatural footwear and natural footwear, and why are we talking about that with regard to playing tennis at any level, whether you're an elite athlete, you're on the pro tour, whether you're an up and coming athlete, doesn't matter what age you are. Everybody who loves tennis can benefit from listening to a conversation about how our feet are designed to be sensors that feel the ground. And when we play tennis, which we love chasing that little fuzzy yellow ball around and get so much out of it, we're talking about why is it so important to get as little material on your feet and as much sensation in the ground, your sensation, your relationship with the ground as possible, starting, stopping, turning, running. What role does cushion play, and how important is it to get the cushion out of our shoes as much as possible, no matter what level we're playing? So Nick, can you take it away from there?
Yes. Also just want to say you have a great shirt. So if people watching this haven't read it yet, have a read.
That's a horrible idea. What time do you want me there?
What time and where? I'll be there. Yeah, okay. So we talked about natural footwear and unnatural footwear. And I think a lot of people have this misunderstanding that, let's come at it from this perspective. My base case and my truth, and I'm always open to having my mind changed, but the more information I have to support a fundamental truth, the harder it is for me to change my mind, because I just have so much information, so much input that I've received. My fundamental truth is that natural footwear both enhances performance, so makes you a better athlete, more athletic, and mitigates your risk of injury. And natural footwear means footwear with no cushioning, just something to protect your foot from damage, to offer traction, and to basically protect your foot from abrasion, from scrapes and cuts. That's natural footwear. And the flip side of that truth is that unnatural footwear, which is like rigid, narrow, cushioned, and elevated, reduces performance and increases your risk of injury. And I think maybe the detail, the specific element of that we could talk about today is cushioning. Now, I think a lot of people have this what I have now seen to be a misunderstanding, that cushioning reduces impact forces. And I think we need to unpack like really nitty-gritty nuance in that, because I've found that to be false on a global level, but true at a local level. And let me clarify that. When you put a shoe on that has an air bubble or a piece of foam, what you do is you cushion the heel bone of your foot. But you do that at the expense of your body no longer needing to cushion the joints upstream by efficiently absorbing ground reaction forces when you interact with the ground, right? So if I jump up and down on my heel, that's going to hurt if I don't have cushioning. That's going to feel better if I do have cushioning. But what feels better than both of those is jumping and landing on my forefoot and letting my Achilles tendon and the joints and the muscles and the ligaments of my foot absorb the impact, so that one, not only does it shelter my joints upstream from receiving that harsh impact force, it actually stores the energy in all of my tendons, which can then be re-released to spring me back up further or to launch me into another stride. And so I think we have to really separate local impact absorption and global impact absorption. And global impact absorption really has to do with movement efficiency, and local impact absorption really has to do with protecting specific bones. Mm-hmm. And when we protect the specific bones, we reduce the need. When we get the cushioning externally, we reduce the need to get that cushioning internally with the way we're moving. So when it comes to understanding why cushioned, my position from that argument is that cushioned footwear actually reduces performance at every level, including and especially so with high level athletes. Now, the one asterisk I would put there is that not every high level athlete has the movement efficiency or the foot capacity to just make that switch to natural footwear, ditch cushioning, and be completely fine and play the way they currently do, right? They'll have to build capacity and they'll have to train in this new sensory environment, this more pure sensory environment. What I mean by that is when you have cushioning under your foot, every layer of material between your foot and the ground is a layer of impedance from getting pure sensory input from the ground under you. And the more layers you've got and the more layers you've been using, the less your body knows how to interpret pure signals from the ground, right? It has to relearn how to move effectively when you ditch cushioning. So a lot of athletes, especially high level ones, will have to train into eliminating the cushioning. But once they're there, they get much purer signals from the ground. They're able to react much more quickly because there's no manipulation of the signals coming in from these layers of cushioning. And a thought experiment I often like to do is like go to the limit, right? What if you had a shoe? Would it be good to have a shoe with 3 inches of super soft cushioning? How do you think Roger Federer would play in a shoe like that? Probably not very well. He would probably look like Bambi, because there's just it is so unstable, and there's so much leverage that if you go, not only do you have to like find your balance every time you land because there's so much instability created, you also have way more leverage, so that if you do start to roll your ankle, you are going down way further and going to injure yourself way more. So I mean, that's exaggerating, but I think looking at things in the limit can really give clarity to what they look like in a smaller extent, right? The idea that a big layer of cushioning manipulates sensory input and creates a lot of instability. A small layer of cushioning also creates some degree of instability. Although it might be small, it does delay your ability to react immediately to the ground. It delays your ability to harness the energy of absorbing impact with muscles and tendons, because cushioning is effectively an energy leak, where that stored kinetic energy, that kinetic energy from acceleration or deceleration can't be stored. It actually just gets wasted. So yeah, I think where do you want to go from there? Because that's really like the most concise way I can articulate it. I think the biggest thing is not the why, right? That's the why. Why is it better to wear natural footwear? Because it gives you more pure sensory input, allows you to react quicker and reduces instability. The really big question, which varies and is very nuanced, is the how. How does one go from cushioned shoes to natural footwear without creating problems, without creating issues of movement efficiency or issues with performance? And it really comes from training into it, not just flicking the switch and doing it.
Yeah, okay, so that's a great question. And we're going to get there next, maybe in another conversation, like how, and dig deep and unpack that. But where I would like to go next is this, to just backtrack on what you were saying about tennis shoes that are cushioned and narrow and unnatural, essentially, are all tennis shoes that all high level athletes play with. So I think that, I mean, I'm going to be bold here, because sometimes I sit on the fence, because you don't hear a lot about what we're talking about, but it's like any tennis shoe, any Asics tennis shoe, any Nike tennis shoe, any New Balance tennis shoe, any Adidas tennis shoe, any athlete that you see playing at the highest level, all of those tennis shoes are unnatural. I have not seen a natural pair of shoes on the tennis tour. Let's just go to the highest level athletes that we're talking about. So, and I noticed that we're seeing so many kind of crazy injuries that I think theoretically are boiled down to the types of shoes that athletes are wearing. That they do, to me, the more I delve into my own relationship with natural footwear on the tennis court, and then I watch tennis, because I watch way too much tennis on TV. But I'm not just watching because I love watching tennis. I'm also watching the athletes move, and it is like watching Bambi or a baby colt. It's like watching this amazing, wildly strong animal in a pair of like high-heeled shoes. It looks like that to me. And you see athletes fall unnecessarily for no good reason when they try to move their super athletically trained body. And I would even argue that now, in this time where we have so much information on how to train our beautiful organisms and get as strong and as mobile and flexible as possible. And then you put the high-heeled tennis shoe on the athlete and then ask them to get out there, and they're used to the cushioning. So I just want to reiterate that any tennis shoe that any athlete is wearing is unnatural.
Yeah, and it literally puts them at a disadvantage for performance. And that, I think there's one of the biggest problems is that there is currently no incentive for people don't have the understanding, including athletes, to demand that footwear companies make better footwear, right?
That's
so there's
where
no
I was going next. Why?
Yeah, and there's all these. You go.
No, I just wanted to formulate the question specifically because I think you're going right into that, which is like, why then? Why would anybody listen to us about natural footwear? This is the question I get. Like, why are all those amazing athletes wearing those shoes and all those like, why don't any of the elite people know about this? And why aren't they, if this is such great information and athletes can perform better with these shoes, I mean, excuse me, I'm getting all fired up.
Okay.
Why aren't we doing it then? Like, why aren't the athletes switching? This can't be that like revolutionary information. Like, why aren't we using it?
That's a good question. And I wish I mean, I have a couple guesses as to why this isn't being done. It seems absurdly obvious to me. And I mean, it's not rocket science, Ruth. This is like really, if you wear shoes that aren't shaped like your feet and that place some layer of material between you and the ground, you're not going to be able to move as efficiently as if you had shoes that don't damage how your foot function, right? I think fundamentally there's this implicit assumption that our feet aren't good, right? Like, I think this is the core of it. Like, our feet aren't good. They can't do their job right. They need help. We need to apply this. It's this human ego thing of, we have the technology to make our bodies better. So if we cover our shoes with cover our feet with high-tech shoes, they're going to perform better. And it's this classic example of how when you introduce a new variable into a highly complex system that you don't fully understand, you end up creating all of these unintended consequences that you have no idea even are happening. And this happens with medicine all the time, right? Like, we have this complex problem of like diabetes, and which has 1,000 different variables. And we take one little chemical imbalance and we fix that, and we think that solves the problem. Meanwhile, it creates 100 other problems that we don't even know about because we don't understand the system. So with feet, same thing. It's like, we have this technology that will cushion your foot. Well, that doesn't, they understand the foot system and movement as a whole so little, because all they do is make clothing. They're really just marketing companies, these shoe companies, right? They have so much money and they have so little push from the professional community and from the consumer community to make better shoes, because the professionals and the consumers don't understand foot function, or at least right now, they really don't at large. So they have no pressure to make shoes differently. It's actually harder to make shoes that are designed for human feet. Now, like, it's harder to make natural footwear. There's more effort and energy goes into it. And the manufacturing techniques that they use right now to make unnatural shoes have to be heavily modified to make natural shoes. So there's a big hurdle here, right? And so whenever this has happened with other industries, like Blockbuster didn't want to change at all. They were like, we got all these locations, we're making all this money from late fees. Then Netflix comes along and then Blockbuster's dead within 2 years, right? So this idea that is much harder for a big shoe company to change into natural footwear than it is for a new up and coming company to just do it and obsolete the old companies if they don't change. And so I think there's just so much money in footwear as it's currently made that it is a disincentive for a big company to say, hey, we've been making shoes that actually damage y'all's feet. We're going to change everything we do in every way to stop making the footwear that's bad, which we're still selling you and you're still buying. And we're going to make shoes a different way that aligns with human foot function. Like, there's a big disincentive there financially. So I think that's a big part of it. As professionals become aware of how important feet are, as they gain understanding that our bodies are these insanely high-tech machines that really just have to be allowed to function naturally to perform best, they can then push back. Like Nadal can go to Adidas and say, hey, this shoe is actually messing me up and is reducing my performance. I want you to make me a shoe that's actually tailor made to my foot that allows me to perform better. And these are the features I want in it. When Rafa does that, that company has a motivation to start changing, right? And if he gives them an ultimatum, says, hey, if you don't do this and you keep messing up my game, I'm going to go to a different company that is going to do this. I'm going to go to Vivo Barefoot. And so, yeah, I think change is happening. It just takes time, and really the change is a function of education more than anything, right? Because as
Agreed.
consumers know better, as pros know better, they can put pressure on the companies. The companies then have a reason to change despite it being difficult, and then change happens. And ironically enough, the original patent for Vivo Barefoot sole was created by a guy called Tim Brennan, who was a high-level tennis player, kept having ankle injuries, developed as part of his thesis project a sole design for a shoe and sold it to Vivo Barefoot, which is like super ironic. That's the origin story.
You shut up right now. Is that
I'm not
true?
kidding you. It's true. Yeah, look it up. Tim Brennan, Vivo Barefoot sole patent, and you'll find it. It's pretty cool.
Nick, you've been holding out on me. That is a major nugget.
Sorry, I was waiting for the right time to release it.
Whoa.
So yeah, I think it is changing, right? Like all you need is one unicorn athlete that really takes an interest in their foot function, puts pressure on the manufacturer, develops a really cool, and funnily enough, this is a huge opportunity for the first company that does it.
Yeah.
Because they can capture this giant market that's growing and blossoming and start to market this new type of shoe that is actually based in truth, that aligns with foot function and can actually, like the orthotic of the future is a really good natural shoe, because that is the ultimate tool to restore your foot function, is cover it with something that allows it to restore its natural function, not some rigid thing that manipulates function even more. That's maybe the ultimate example of you don't understand a system well enough to see the unintended consequences you create by solving one part of a giant problem. That is orthotics in a nutshell.
Oh my God, I'm reeling right now. Okay, so my last question for this particular segment of our talk, because I'm gonna invite you right now to dive into Rafa's foot injury and the progression of his shoes over the years. Just say yes to me right now.
I'm down, as long I just don't have time to collect the information. But if you
I'm just gonna ask you about. I'm just gonna give you the nuggets, the degenerative foot injury and the progression, and then I'm just gonna have you riff on it.
It'd be cool too if we found video clips of high-level tennis players muffin on shitty shoes, and be able to analyze those. It'd be great, because you could really illustrate concisely and crisply, like, this is exactly an example of the problem we're talking about.
I'm on it, Chief. I'm on it. Perfect. My last question then would be like, could you imagine, let's say, an athlete who has been trained in transition, a high-level athlete wearing natural footwear, would you wager that person, everything else being equal, could that person being that athlete wearing natural footwear beat the same level athlete wearing cushioned shoes? Would you bet on that athlete?
The all else being equal part is if it was a clone and it's the exact person, the exact same training, the exact same ability to hit the ball, the exact same movement capacity, and you make a clone and they do the same practice every day, and one person continues doing practice in cushioned shoes, one person does it in natural footwear, then I would bet on the natural footwear person every time, as long as they train in the natural shoes. And if all else is held the same, yeah, because they have an advantage. Like, really, it's all about odds, right? Someone in natural shoes, my truth is that a person in natural shoes that trains well into them and transitions well has a foundational performance advantage over someone who's covering their feet with something that puts them at a performance disadvantage, right? It would be like saying, do you think you have a tennis court, half of it is sand, half of it is concrete? Who do you think is going to play better? Obviously, the person on concrete is going to move way more swiftly. In the limit, that's effectively what cushioning is, right? Like, think of that, even though it's an exaggeration, but that's kind of what it is, right? Sand slows down your reaction time because it absorbs the energy and leaks energy. So you can't conserve that energy and like stop and start quickly, because something sucks energy out of you and the ground reaction forces. So maybe that's a good metaphor, because that's kind of the way I think about it. Obviously, it's not as extreme, but that is essentially what you're doing, is covering your foot with a bit of sand to cushion but also remove all of your ability to have clear sensory feedback from ground reaction forces and be able to harness energy to re-release that energy into allowing you to switch directions quicker or generate more power.
I think that's where we're going to end it.
Sounds good.
Thanks for listening, TFC friends, family, and anyone else curious about what we're talking about. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next episode. Ciao for now.
Ciao. Ciao, ciao.